The rebels' hidden fort.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Enough of this. Vader, release him.
As you wish.
Traveling down one of the core hyperlanes, the Imperial Star Destroyer Exactor was en route across the void for a mission of the Empire. One day, a mediocre officer was summoned to the bridge before the ISD's captain. Alger Denholm was promoted with immediate effect. This stumped Denholm. Though honored, he is very much perplexed he would be replacing his superior, Lieutenant Marsden, a most honorable man. There were no rumors or reports of him being reassigned, and they have been in hyperspace for a few standard days, so he's not used a shuttle to report elsewhere. Something sinister was about, Denholm was thinking. Denholm settled into his new role, and even received praise from his captain. Then one day, several bizarre incidents began. Denholm observed Marsden walking in a hurry with his head down. Denholm failed to intercept him, even with calling his name. That night he woke up in darkness, and the air was cold, and he was drenched in sweat. He wasn't used to having night terrors, but he was sure that this is what it was. And then, he heard something, but he wasn't entirely sure either. He rode back over and then heard someone clearing their throat at the end of his bed. When Denholm called out, he heard more of the sound. Someone was choking and unable to breathe.
Apology accepted, Captain Nida.
The lights would not work, so he desperately called for help. Stormtroopers arrived to an empty room with Denholm standing there in terror. Over the next several days he could not sleep, and more he would see Marsden but was unable to ever catch him. The dark hours of the night were increasingly plagued by the choking figure. Denholm no longer slept to avoid this terrible sound. A few days later, the captain informed the crew they should expect an arrival of a visiting dignitary, and assigned Denholm to oversee the arrival. Denholm went to the hangar in his Class A's and scanned the ranks of the stormtroopers. Their faces were hidden. Were they in on this prank? Denholm sighed as the shuttle made its way into the hangar. Probably some scrawny, nerve-hurting old ambassador who needed fawning. The shuttle door opened to a nightmare, a tall and imposing figure. The air was cold. The man walked down the ramp. Denholm heard a choking sound behind him. He screamed and twisted around. It was Marsden, but a spectral form? His horrible coughing made him back up until he hit a wall. He turned back around to see it was not a wall, but Darth Vader. Vader jabbed his finger towards Denholm. His body jerked and lifted from the ground. Clawing at his throat, he couldn't breathe. He could hear his own choking sounds until all he could hear was the rasping sound of Vader's labored lungs. And just before the last of the light gave out, he knew somehow Marsden was trying to warn him. But it was not enough.